Welcome everyone to the all-important encounter at the Tech Mahindra Global Chess League between Magnus Carlsen of the Alpine SG Pipers and Hikaru Nakamura representing the American Gambits. They both are two of the finest players in the world of chess, especially in rapid and blitz format, and it is an utter joy to see them facing off against each other. It's a very important matchup because both the teams are on similar points, and the one who comes out on top will be able to fight for the top two spots that are so very important in this tournament. And Magnus and Hikaru will play on the icon board, and this is going to be such an exciting battle. The arbiter comes in and asks them to start the game, and off we go. Magnus opens with 1 e4. Hikaru responds with the Sicilian. Knight comes out and the accelerated dragon is on the board. Magnus goes d4 after some thought for a minute. Hikaru takes, knight takes, and now puts his bishop on g7. And we have the Maroczy bind set up with c4. Knight comes out to c6, attacking the knight on d4. Magnus defends it, and queen b6, putting further pressure here. Now the main move is knight b3, and Magnus plays knight to b5 with check, and knight comes back. The queen comes in, attacking the pawn on b4, and Magnus is thinking for his move, plays his queen to c1, defending here. Also not putting the queen on c2 because knight d4 could hit it. d6 has been played, and now the knight develops to the d2 square. Hikaru puts his bishop on e6, trying to put some pressure on the c4 pawn. Magnus finishes his development here with bishop e2, getting ready to castle it out here. And bishop d4, a very interesting move. Hikaru is not developing his knight. He plays this slightly more provocative move, bishop d3, played by Magnus. And now it's time to finish your development. Not really, rook c8 first, putting pressure down the c file. Magnus castles it out, and Hikaru brings his knight out to f6. And here Magnus is already down by 4 minutes on the clock. He plays rook e1, and Hikaru goes knight g4. He wants to come knight e5, attack the bishop and the pawn, and Magnus says, do it Hikaru, I'm ready for it. h3, what a bold move. Knight e5, he drops his bishop back. Now taking here is a mistake because after takes there's knight d5 with a deadly pin here. That's the reason why Hikaru castles it out. But now Magnus attacks the queen, and the queen has to go back. It goes back to b6, and now the knight jumps into d5, attacking the queen and the pawn on e7. Hikaru takes it, pawn takes, and plays his pawn to e6. Now a very interesting moment. You can take on e6, but you can also just calmly play knight e4. Wow, what an attacking move. Queen h6, knight f6, check threatened here. Hikaru pushes the pawn to f5. If the knight moves, there's knight b3 with a fork. But Magnus plays c5, takes here, goes to g5, attacking this knight here because the pawn has moved. The queen comes in to defend the knight. Suddenly, the pace of the game has quickened drastically. Magnus has 6 minutes on the clock. Hikaru has 5 minutes 23 seconds, attacking the knight on e5. Hikaru finds the best move, knight f7. Magnus chops off the pawn on e6, and rook e8 is played. Now this knight is threatened to be taken at the right moment, but Magnus bolsters it even further with bishop c4. What is Hikaru going to do next? He plays knight d8, wanting to remove the knight. It's a good move by him. Magnus brings his rook into the center, trying to put pressure down the d file. Takes. Pawn takes, and now there could be threats of pushing the pawn. So Hikaru blocks it with rook e7. Now b4, b6, preventing the shakiness of the knight here on d4. It's solidly placed with that pawn on c5. h4. Magnus wants to rip apart the black king side. What a game this is. f4 attacking the queen. Hikaru is not one to take the blows lying down. He goes f4. Magnus plays king, queen e4. King comes up. And now the rook wants to enter down the b file. You get your knight back to f5 here. And maybe attacking the h4 pawn. Magnus goes rook d1. Idea could be rook d7. So the knight jumps back to d4. And it seems like Hikaru wasted a couple of moves. But Magnus keeps moving forward. h5 on the board. And now the best move is king f6. It's very difficult for a human to find it. But Hikaru is a half human, half amazing person. He's able to find king f6, preparing queen e5. Magnus stops it with rook e1. Rook e8 played, trying to put pressure on the e6 pawn. Rook d1, putting pressure down the d file. What a game this is. And now Hikaru chops off the pawn on h5. How is Magnus going to put pressure? What's the new idea? He brings his rook from here. Hikaru gets his rook activated from the g file. Rook swings over to h3, attacking the pawn on h5. And Hikaru can defend it now with rook g5. He does it. Magnus is now a pawn down. But clearly black pawns are in trouble now. This is a weak pawn. Rook f5 needs to be played to protect it. That's the best move. The position is equal. But Hikaru makes a mistake with f3. This is not a great move. Because now rook f4 check is a powerful blow. And I think Magnus wants to make that move. He finds it. Rook f4, king g7 and pushes his pawn to g3. h4, bishop d3 is the winning move. Very tough to find here under time pressure. Magnus has 2 minutes 52 seconds to find this move. But he's planning to take the pawn on h4. No, Magnus, that's a bad move because now Hikaru can chop off the pawn on g3. It's a very important move and Hikaru finds it. If you take here, queen takes g3 leads to a mate. So king h1 played. And now there's an attack on that 7 pawn. So the rook goes back to g6, trying to prevent it. And Magnus brings his rook here, threatening rook h7, king h7, queen g6. Very difficult position. What a move here by Hikaru. If you take here, I take, check. And it's a mate here. So Magnus takes on g6. Hikaru shaking his head. He has 1 minute on the clock. No increment there. Check. Brings his king up. The position is equal. Check. But now he's winning. The rook is attacked here. It is Hikaru who's winning. Magnus in big trouble here. What to do? Suddenly knight f5 and there is problems on the back rank. Magnus takes the pawn. Rook h6. Hikaru has to find this. He would be winning. No, but he doesn't find. Knight f5 is played. And now the game is once again even. Check. King comes up to f4. And the king is trying to run away. He brings his bishop back. Can Hikaru find some winning idea? But it doesn't exist here. He plays rook g5, offering a trade of rooks. The position is still looking good for black. Now there's no mate, but Magnus chops off a very important pawn. Queen d4, attacking the pawn on f2. And now the position becomes more calm. Magnus brings his king to g1, check on g4, king h2. Look at the time. Hikaru down to 27 seconds. He looks at his opponent, team members' games. Magnus is laughing because Hikaru hardly has time to play on. What a draw this was between two absolutely amazing chess players. Really, hats off to them for entertaining us and showing the accuracy that they did. Magnus missed a win. Hikaru missed a couple of important wins, but they both played so well. They found so many ideas under less than a few seconds, on the clock. And I think that really has to be appreciated. And look at them both discussing the game. The match was eventually won by the Alpine SG Pipers. But really, for these two amazing players, chess is a language that bonds them. Chess is a language that makes Hikaru and Magnus enjoy talking to each other because no other player can reach their level quite so easily. And thank you to both of them for entertaining us.